Hey, Scott, I just got a message from Carolyn that said she's going to join via phone when she can, but she might not be able to see the presentations and stuff, but she'll watch the video later. But
Okay,
she'll try to join by phone when she can.
and I heard that Lori's unable to make it. Blanca texted me that she's going to be a little bit late because she's been in class. So hopefully Lisa and Scott can join us soon. So
Yes.
everybody, please bear with us as we wait for other members of the commission to join us. I see Catherine Nichols has joined us. Hey, Catherine.
Hello.
And Scott's just joined as well.
Yeah, hey, Scott, Tom Have, thanks for joining.
Hey, everybody.
So for those of you who are joining us just now, we're waiting for one more member of the commission to join us, and then we'll get started. So bear with us.
Coming in or no, girl?
So James, even though we do not have an official quorum, there's no action that's being taken by the commission this evening. So I think given the fact that we've got several folks joining us to make presentations and it's being recorded so that the other members of the commission can listen to this later on, we go ahead and get started. I know we've got Scott Tomhave on the call, Catherine Nichols, and myself, Scott Way. And I believe later this evening, Blanca Loya will also be able to join us, and Carolyn Gonzalez, hopefully by phone. So welcome everyone to the 11th meeting of the Parks and Open Space Commission of Hays County. Thank you all for joining us. And first order of business this evening is for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, we will allow for 2 minutes of comments. So please raise your hand and let us hear from you. All right, well, seeing no raised hands, unless I'm missing someone, you can unmute and speak up. But it seems we have no public comments this evening, so we might as well move on to our presentation. James,
Scott,
you
it
want
looks
to?
like, hey, Scott, sorry, it looks like we might have Dr. Garza.
Good evening. We just wanted to introduce ourselves. I'm Maria Rocha, Executive Director of Indigenous Cultures Institute.
And I'm board chair of the tribe that started the nonprofit Indigenous Cultures Institute.
We're just here at your pleasure if you have any questions from us. So thank you so much.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And it looks like we do have Carolyn Gonzalez as one of our members also just joined. So now we do have a quorum. But thank you all for introducing yourselves. Is there anyone else for public comment this evening? Okay, well, hearing none, then James, if you could introduce our first presenter.
Okay, so the first up, we've got Indigenous Cultures Institute and Emmy, is that correct? Or are you going to be doing the presentation or?
Yes, correct.
I say, okay, so you should be able to take control and share your screen as soon as I stop sharing mine. I think you should be able to take control now and run the presentation. Okay, we're seeing it.
Okay, great. Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes. So
Okay,
it's all yours now.
Great, thank you. So good evening. My name is Emily Aguilar, and I'm here to present the proposed project of the Cultures Center in Hays County. I was asked to speak today on behalf of the Indigenous Cultures Institute and the Miakan Garza Band of Coahuiltecan people, a state legislature recognized tribe that has been acknowledged by Texas for our, quote, organization's vital role in promoting and protecting the traditions of Native Americans who are indigenous to Texas and northern Mexico, end quote. So I'll start with, in the words of one of our co-founders and our cultural preservation officer, Dr. Mario Garza, who you just met, quote, this project is a vision of service to our community, end quote. I'll start by grounding us in the vision for the center in our shared histories as Texans. So what we're looking at is a selection from the White Shaman panel, an intricate pictograph on the wall of a cave overlooking the Pecos River. In this vast mural, carbon dated to be 4,000 years old, 4 fountain springs are depicted, including the San Marcos Springs. The mural documents our creation story as it was passed down to us. In the beginning, we were in the underworld, in spirit form. Then we took on human form and followed the deer who journeyed up through the springs, pulled to the land by the water bird. And that is how our people came to be on Taptai, Mother Earth. This is why these very lands are so important to us. This is why these images are represented in the White Shaman panel. To this day, we pray to and alongside Taptai. We take care of her and she takes care of us. This is why we're all here today. The Indigenous Cultures Center will publicly restore this precious heritage on land that will revive the past and acknowledge Hayes County's Indigenous communities that have maintained our ceremonies, languages, and traditions for millennia. Most Texans that are currently labeled Hispanic have been forced to hide their Indigenous languages, ceremonies, and relationships to their ancestors due to Spanish colonization, compelling many to identify as Mexican to survive genocide. In the 2020 census, the number of people self-identifying as Native American increased by 87%, according to the Census Bureau data. According to the 2012 Hayes County Parks, Open Spaces, and Natural Areas Master Plan, growth in Hayes County has increased rapidly in the past 10 years and is anticipated to reach over 335,000 by 2025. Of this population, almost 40% very likely have ancestral ties to Politecan culture. According to archaeologists, this area is the longest continuously inhabited site in North America. This means that our people have been here for over 14,000 years. This bond funding presents an opportunity to create a space that is representative of the living cultures of more than 1/3 of Hayes County residents. In the early 1900s, the first Mexican-American barrio was created in downtown San Marcos. Urban renewal projects later bought out the homes and properties of the Mexican-American residents, resulting in loss of homes, livelihoods, and histories. This deep wound has not been forgotten. The Indigenous Culture Center would unify Cuauhtemoc Hall, established over 70 years ago, and Centro Cultural Hispano de San Marcos, established in 2010, to create a cultural corridor. This cultural corridor would highlight the history and contemporary abundance of these neighborhoods as part of the permanent landscape of the city and would demonstrate the county's commitment to equity for all residents. Although a site is open to determination, this proposal is imagined as if the center will align with access to the San Marcos River. The Institute has obtained a commitment from the City of San Marcos to determine and provide an available and appropriate land for the proposed project. The goal is for the center to serve as a hub amongst a series of shared greenways, open park spaces, and the protected waterways of the San Marcos River, in order to have a significant impact on local communities, tourists, and visitors nationwide. According to the demand-based assessment by Hayes County, the Indigenous Cultures Center meets the criteria to be considered a priority project as a facility that is larger sized with both passive and active recreational spaces. These spaces can include, but are not limited to, river or creek access through a system of multi-use greenway trails, festival and event space, youth outdoor facilities, nature center, community gardens, opportunities to passively enjoy the scenic and natural beauty of Hayes County, and an abundance of educational opportunities on Indigenous cultures and ancestry. The center would allow the county to expand the scope and reach of its current programs, serving hundreds of additional local and regional residents and thousands of tourists and visitors. The center would be a hub for physical, spiritual, and emotional wellness. The creation of fields or covered courts would delineate recreational space that will be used to teach Indigenous sports such as the Mayan ball games, danza workshops, and lacrosse exhibitions, which are possible through the Institute's Indigenous Network. Central to the health of our community is the health of our foodways. A community garden will allow people to come together to cultivate medicinal plants and harvest native foods that teach about local history and resilience. The center will hold food cultivation workshops as productive social learning spaces that will center food justice, nutrition, and wellness. These community gardens will serve to support community health, wellness, and food security across our county. Transportation to the center will be made accessible with an emphasis on pedestrian traffic and intermodal access to the park, such as walking areas and bike trails. The Institute also has a long-standing relationship with San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District and their transportation department. This partnership has been vital in ensuring that large-scale events like our Sacred Springs Powwow provide seamless shuttle service for attendees and limit the need for a major parking system. Most importantly, by allowing the Guatecan people, the original stewards of this place, to protect and teach about the river and surrounding areas, the county is committing to protecting this sacred site for generations to come. The image we're seeing is a representation of Barton Spring, a painting by Susan Dennis. Barton Springs is also a sacred site and is also represented on the White Shaman panel. Decades ago, independent researchers conducted an environmental study in Austin, which found that Barton Springs and the water quality was in danger of being compromised forever. At the time, despite enormous efforts from community groups, protecting the springs was not a citywide nor a countywide priority. Today, many thousands of acres in the Barton Springs segment have been subjected to intense development without regard for the land, the water, the animals, or the Guatecan people. The Indigenous Culture Center in San Marcos would conserve natural areas for the community to enjoy, providing opportunity to observe local wildlife and for land and water resource protection. This project would also bring a unique addition to the nature centers of the county by bringing an Indigenous perspective from the original stewards of these lands. We aim for the center to include accessible creek and river access to the public, specifically for ceremonial and sustainability practices. The Institute ensures that maintaining our covenant with sacred sites is central. Our relationship with land is of the utmost importance, and this permeable access way would be an educational tool to bring awareness and further partnership opportunities in sustainable methodologies and environmental conservation. Outdoor recreation is marginally accessible to our elders and others in the community. This project would not only connect a more diverse range of people to the shores of the river, but it would also connect the river with multi-use trails, recreational and event space, and educational and ceremonial engagement. All multi-use trails used within the center would align with county standards to heighten local and regional connectivity. In fact, our elders, Dr. Mario Garza and Maria Rocha, who are on this call, are members of the Great Springs Trails Plan that will be connecting all 4 of our sacred springs. So now I invite you to imagine. Imagine yourself here, imagine a family here, friends, 2 generations from now. Imagine that a Saturday walk with a child might spark a new understanding of the zopilote atop a bald cypress tree alongside the river with no native pronunciation of that tree. Imagine that after attending a theater performance of Yanaguana's Legend of the Bluebonnet at the local amphitheater on the center grounds, a group of Hispanic college students may chat with a member of the cast, learning more about their own ancestral ties to this land. Imagine an Indigenous gardening class held within one of the center's open park spaces, inspiring a family to cultivate a native garden. Imagine elders sharing a picnic to the sound of the beating drum as danzantes practice nearby, inspiring community building, ancestral connection, and well-being. Each of these potential encounters and countless others not yet known are why parks and open spaces are so important. The Indigenous Culture Center will offer a desperately missing space that our communities deeply deserve, a space for cultural preservation, water protection, land conservation, and educational opportunities from an Indigenous perspective that has often been ignored and hidden from the people of Hays County. Our communities and our ecologies deeply deserve these abundant connections. Thank you.
Well, Emily, thank you for that presentation. much of which was very well said. And it is interesting that in Texas, we have very little places where we talk about the indigenous cultures that existed here for so many years, whereas many other states, it's more front and center. So I appreciate this. I guess one question I have for you is, where are you all in actually planning a physical site and building plans and budgeting?
Yeah, so we're currently working with the city. The city of San Marcos has agreed to work with us to identify a land site. A land site has not been identified yet, and that would be something that we would definitely want the community to have a say in. We believe that this should be a community effort and that all residents who would be impacted by this would be able to have a say. So that's where we're at with land identification. In terms of budget, we included a proposed budget in our proposal. Does everybody have access to that proposal at this time?
Yes, we do. Thanks. I just thought with your presentation, do you recall what the overall budget is and what the request from Hays County is?
I think we're at 10 million. Is that correct? Yes.
There is $0.25 million value that we placed on the land that the city is going to provide, and they're providing that part of the project. The $10 million estimate we got from some of our relations work with construction company that builds bond projects for schools. And so they allowed us to use their formula for the $15,000 for 15,000 square foot building and the surrounding structures. How much would that cost? So they use their formulas to calculate the 10 million. That's how we arrived at that figure.
Got it. Thank you. Members, do you all have other questions?
I guess I'm wondering with the facilities that are recreational outdoors, are they going to be on new property that the city identifies for you, or something existing, or some of each are in the grounds of your building?
Yeah, so that's what we're working with the city to identify. We're really open to what the city and what the county and the residents think is best. We really want to make sure that we're conserving natural areas and that we're limiting the need for any kind of major parking system. So those are our priorities with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say that it was 10,000 square feet facility?
We're looking at 15,000.
Okay. Thank you. How many acres are you looking for?
We had told the city that we would like to have 10 acres, so there would be sufficient open spaces for the public.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for your presentation. And regardless of where this goes, I was very moved by what you talked about in the history of these springs. We all know with Barton Springs, with San Marcos Springs, with Jacob's Well, that people have been there long before us. And what we're trying to do is make sure that they continue and that we are carrying those forward for future generations. And that's what we're doing. But I think that there's a place at all of these for some of the past history so that we can see and have connection to the folks that have come before us and that have also worshiped those places that we all worship today in each of our ways and in our enjoyment of them. So thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us the time to speak. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. James, you want to introduce our next presenter?
Okay, next up, we've got Texas State University with the Lakeside Trail Restoration Project, Spring Lake. I think we've got several folks on maybe from Texas State. Who's going to be spearheading this presentation?
Hi, James. My name's Gordon Baumfalk. I'll be the presenter.
Okay. All right, Gordon. If you want to try to share your screen, if
Sure.
you've got a presentation, go ahead, and I'll let you know when we can see it. Okay, I can see it, and it's yours to go.
Okay. Thank you, James. Thank you, Scott.
Gordon, real quick. It's small because I guess it's on presenter mode
Oh, okay.
from what we can see. We've been through this before. We have a PowerPoint expert that could help us on this. I know we had one before.
He has 2 screens. He needs to change the screen, which he's trying to view the presentation from.
Yeah, hang on 1 second.
While you're doing that, I want to acknowledge Lisa Pruitt, another member of the commission who just was able to join us. Welcome, Lisa.
If I remember, Blanca told us that the tab called View has a choice that I don't remember what it was, but I thought it was under View.
It's actually, Catherine, it's right. Go back to where you were. There, it was a view presenter screen. I can't remember. I think it's slideshow. Hit the slideshow on the menu bar up above.
Right here.
There you go. Hit that.
Okay.
And then over there to the right where it says monitors, it says use presenter view, uncheck that box. Right there.
One down.
Okay.
And now hit view slideshow. Lower right hand corner from the beginning. Yeah, there you go.
Did that work?
Not yet.
So Gordon, let's try go to the bottom right.
Yeah.
Okay.
See over to the left, not that
Okay.
first icon to the left of that size. To the right. To the right. One more over.
Right there.
That one. Is it not doing it?
Hit your escape key real quick and then try from the beginning again.
Okay.
If not, you can just run through it. The way
Yeah,
it
if
looks
not
right now.
Okay. Hang on.
that should be sufficient. The presenter view just makes it so small, it's hard to read for a lot of folks.
That's actually fine on my view. You can flip through it like that. It's fine.
Okay. Is that okay, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Sorry for the delay there. Thanks for hearing our presentation. My name is Gordon Baumfock. I'm the Director of Facilities Planning, Design, and Construction at Texas State. What we're looking at here is we're looking southwest along Spring Lake. Let me go to the next slide. So are you seeing the cover slide here or the next slide?
The cover slide, if you click that
Yeah.
slide right there, you'll be able to change it. There you go.
Hmm.
You can use your down arrow from there forward.
Okay. Okay, so you see the overall map now.
Correct.
Okay. So just to kind of orient you, the area that we're talking about for the proposed trail goes from Sessom along the northwest side of Spring Lake, and then up to this road and eventually connecting into Lime Kiln Trail and Lime Kiln Road. Another thing to point out, we're also working with the city of San Marcos on a connection here around Jowers. So the city property is here and we're trying to form a connection to the trail through this area. So just to give you a feel for what Spring Lake looked like around the turn of the 20th century. So this is looking at that northwest side in about 1906. Here's the old mill. The dam was back over here. And I think that this was actually used as a road along Spring Lake. And this is what it looks like today. So our overall plan is to begin at what will soon be Kirby Lane Cafe at this, where the old mill site was. And we'll continue all along the northwest side of Spring Lake, and then back over to Meadow Center, and then up to EDL Green here, and eventually connecting to Lime Kiln Trail. This is the old mill. This is an old site plan that we have. The mill is here. There was actually a bridge that went across the San Marcos River that's here, which we are proposing. So that bridge that I'm talking about bridges from here back over to the edge of the land here on the front. We're proposing covered deck areas, and then we're going with on-grade trails in between trees and things like that. These darker areas are considered elevated trails, so we go from elevated trail back to trail on grade. So here's looking back. We're making a lot of improvements to this building right now. Here's actually the area that the bridge would actually cross over, and our proposed elevated trail going along this edge. So moving northwest, again, elevated trail. Here's Ed JL Green, where we would manage to do trail on grade through all this vegetation and trees, and then pick up with more elevated trail. And then also in our proposal is to improve some of these facilities. This is actually a deck and an overlook that's currently there that we would improve and make it accessible to the trail. Then moving on to this area, elevated trail on grade. We're proposing adding a structure for solar panels for solar PV that would also help in rainwater distribution to rainwater collection at the solar PV. Here's the structure that I was talking about, and more elevated deck along Spring Lake here, and then our proposed project stops here for future connection into Lime Kiln. So just to give you an image of what we think the structure would be like, this in the upper right-hand corner is a elevated solar project and trail that I did at Sheldon Lake for Texas Parks and Wildlife. And this is also a detail of an elevated trail that is done at the Birding Center down in South Texas. I worked on both of these projects for TPWD. So, and I had a great video here, but it doesn't seem to be running. So. So that's my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gordon. When you go to the site plan, the first map that you showed, so aren't there existing city parkland to the north of that, or northeast? Somewhere around in there, there's already existing parkland with trails. Is that right? Or am I wrong?
I'm sorry, Scott, I don't know the answer to that.
Scott, can I help out here a little bit maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right across, I think, the street from where it says connect to Lime Kiln Trail, there's a lot of trail systems up in this area. Above that,
That's what I thought. I thought I had gone mountain biking up in there.
yeah.
It'd be great, Gordon, if you all incorporate that into your thoughts on what you're
And
doing.
they're very utilized by City of San Marcos residents and people from outside of San Marcos too.
Mm-hmm.
And the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance works on the trail system there. There's a great volunteer crew that is continuously enhancing the trail system in that area as well. The bikes can access it as well as walking.
I think that what you'd be creating would potentially be a connection, although it looks like there is roadway for Texas State students to get over to there by walking, right? And so just, considering that mobility and what you all are doing would be good.
Sure, we'll take a look at that.
Gordon, what is your budget request and your match?
Our budget request is $6.25 million. And our contribution is 1.25 million.
And is there any reason why it's not submitted as a trail proposal? It's submitted under the urban category, I think.
We definitely discussed that, and I think that it could be under the trail proposal. Yes.
We just haven't had as many trail proposals, and this is a really good one, I think.
Yeah.
Will it be open or locked up in some way, either by hours or,
Yeah, those are really good question. Obviously, security and lighting and things like that. We want it to be secure. We want to do lighting. We of course want to do it in a way that fits into the natural setting. So I'm not sure about all those details, but obviously they'll be important to the project.
Will you have a public involvement opportunity for people to weigh in on some of those issues?
Certainly, I'm not sure I can answer that question, but certainly we would consider that.
And I'm sorry, in lighting, are you saying you would want lighting or you would not want lighting?
I think we have to look at that very carefully, but just by the fact that there would be people here, I think there has to be some sort of lighting along the trail.
Unless you're closing it at dusk or something.
That could help, yes.
So I have a question. For the elevated trail systems, do you guys have an alternative plan for doing something that might not be so costly? That could be more on the ground, or is that the only way those trails could go in?
We've looked at this pretty closely, and these areas that are on grade are what we felt could go on grade, and then after that needed to be elevated because of the topo and just maneuvering in between the trees and things like that. It's, you know, the elevated trail is actually pretty minimal. I think we got as much on grade trail as we could here. So certainly surveys and things like that is something that would help us, you know, define that a little more clearly.
I'm just wondering because a lot of the other trail systems in San Marcos are pretty rustic and a lot of them are done by volunteers only. And
Yeah.
I'm just, if y'all have been able to see some of the other trail systems here and how they have been incorporated, how they've been constructed, just to compare that topo to what it already exists in some of our trail systems. If the reach was too high, would there be an alternative way to still accomplish the goal in a different fashion, possibly?
Maybe so. I think
Yeah, it's a great project.
yeah, I think along EDL Green, like, I don't know if you still see my screen, but
Yes.
this is a very tight area, and obviously we're trying to get close to Spring Lake and not EDL Green. We're trying to move off of that and leave, you know, plenty of vegetation there. So that's almost that for sure is an elevated trail. And this through here is trail on grade. And then right when we get up in here, rather than loop down into, and obviously this is just a napkin sketch, but there are a ton of trees right in here. And so that's why we kind of hung close to this topo, and it's why this little piece is elevated. But then once you get here, then we're back to trail on grade, and we just kind of loop and connect into proposed facilities and to this existing deck, and of course doing a little bit of elevated trail just along the edge here.
So, hey, Gordon, this is Scott.
Yep, Scott.
You guys, in terms of funding for a project like this for a university, is this outside of the purview of the university in terms of land control, or this is the first university project we've had, you know, kind of come forward in the POSAC. So I'm just trying to understand, like, you know, your request here in terms of, you know, most of the time we don't see, up until now, we haven't seen any university requests. So I'm just curious, is this outside of the funding mechanisms that the university has currently for the improvements that y'all have on your campus, or can you enlighten me on that a little bit?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I think that this access is important to the university. I think that it's something that as we move forward, we would be able to provide you more detail about that. But it's certainly it's certainly a great asset for us. And I think that it's something that would improve the university. So the particular way in which it's funded, I'm not sure, but it's certainly, my vice president, Eric Algo, is supporting it, and we would work through those details in order to see the project happen.
Okay, thanks. I just was curious. It's a nice project. I like the project. I just was curious about on the funding side, if Texas State has other avenues to fund something like this versus through a countywide bond program versus, through the university. So thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Gordon, are y'all
Yes,
looking at submitting a proposal to Parks and Wildlife for the Rec Trail Fund?
I believe through the Meadows Center that they have done that. I think that it was for an ADA trail on the other side of Spring Lake. So that's certainly in play. So we are working with them. I was head of planning and design at Texas Parks and Wildlife, so it's been a good while since I've been there, but we would certainly try to take advantage of that where we can.
There is one that's funded from the Rec Trail program that's right down at the water's edge below the building.
Yeah.
That was probably 15 years old, I'm thinking. And my guess about the elevated is that the university needs to be more in compliance with ADA on that particular property than some of the more rural open space where there's natural surface trails that are definitely not ADA.
Yeah.
So I think that, and the visitation to the Meadows Center, in my opinion, makes it a very public facility for county residents and visitors from all over the place. My office used to be there and I walked all that site until it got closed down. So I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
One last quick question, Gordon.
Yes.
How will it be ensured that it's open to public?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that would be something that we would need to work through. I mean, obviously safety is a concern. It is university property, and safety is very important to us. So we would have to work through whether it's gated, whether there's hours of operations, how it's being managed, things like that.
Right. Just because I think we are asking for taxpayer funding in the county, and having that access would definitely be an asset to this project as well.
Yep.
And Gordon, is this designed for pedestrian use or pedestrian and pedal bicycle use?
I think it's both. I think the way we have the trail imagined now, it's about 8 feet wide. And of course that could vary as we, go from elevated trail to trail on grade. But I think it's both.
And I would just say all the other trails at the Meadows Center are open to the public when the property isn't closed for the hours it's closed. Except for paying to park, which is a nuisance.
Nuisance.
That is
We certainly will work through those details. It's just hard to answer those right now without consulting with my vice president and other university.
All right, any other questions for Gordon? Well, thank you for this presentation. I certainly hope to be able to walk on that someday. I love Spring Lake, and I used to go to Peppers at the Falls a long time ago, and I think it was even before that when I was a kid, when it was maybe the Ice House. So I'm interested to see what Kirby Lane does with it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Everyone should, be able to see it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you. James, you want to introduce our next presenter?
Okay, so next up, we've got the city of Kyle, and I believe Scott Sellers is going to be presenting. Scott, I think as soon as Gordon stops sharing, you should be able to take control.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I hope if I've done this right, that you all see a purple screen.
We see a purple screen, or I see a purple screen.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And there are several members of Team Kyle here with us. I'm not sure if I'm going to get them all, but Jerry Hendricks, who's our assistant city manager, Mariana Espinosa, who's the director of Parks and Recreation. And I see Benny on here also, and there's Stacy Anderson. Benny and Stacy are two of our trail maintenance crew. I hope I did not miss any of our team here, but looks like we've got us. And it's good to see you, recognize a few of you. Great to be here, and thanks for having me. So with that, I'm going to present several projects. You've seen these over and over, I know, but the projects have evolved as everything kind of evolves over time. The way I'm going to present these three projects is a little different than you've probably seen from other presenters. And it was mentioned a couple of times already in the last hour about trails, connectivity, and what I'm going to present to you now links our three projects via a city trail network. And that network we are calling in Kyle the Vibe. So with that, here's a little intro. So trail-oriented development is our spin on TOD, transit-oriented development, but we wanted to develop a network that was geared toward the pedestrians. And so here's our map of Kyle. Our agenda will go fairly quickly, I hope, through these slides, but we'll talk about what is the vibe, individual vibes, and that'll make a lot more sense here in just a few minutes. The look and feel of our trail network, the individual three POSAC requests and how they interact with the vibe, the funding requests, and then time for questions. So with that, the vibe, well, the vibe has really evolved. Like I said, it's matured from just trails in general. And as we all kind of know, trails, especially the trails in this region, most are just natural trails, and I love them. I go out all the time on my mountain bike or hiking. So love all the trails here in the area. This is going to be a little bit different. And we were wondering, as we moved this project forward, how does a trail network become the unique attraction of a community and also in the county? And I think San Marcos and Dripping, Wimberley, a lot of our communities have done well developing trails. Kyle has not done as well, and we have recognized that it is a huge opportunity area to develop a world-class trail system. We've looked at what the Kyle brand is in comparison to the region in the county. I think most people know Kyle is just like this crazy fast growth, hyper growth city, but doesn't really have a unique identity other than crazy fast growth. So we're trying to create this brand identity around the expectations of our citizenry and the expectations of the council and the commissioners court, which is that we become a gold standard city. We have interviewed, we have had open houses, trying to develop this idea of branding identity, and in those conversations, quality of life continues to rise to the top. I think our county residents want to see super top shelf quality of life here in our communities. So the council developed a trails task force because that seemed to be this top quality of life item that's kept moving forward in these feedback sessions. And so we wanted to study that further and created this task force and literally looked all over America to pull bits and pieces of best practices for trail development from cities that have done it well. And we feel like we have brought those together in this overall network. The Violet Crown / Emerald Crown trail system, we are working very well with the Great Springs Project, and we have for a while to create the Kyle Loop, and that branches to the Kyle Buda Loop and south to the Kyle San Marcos Loop. And as we've done that, we've had multiple iterations of how do our tie-ins look? What does this Emerald Crown, Violet Crown tie-in look like here in Kyle? So talking about best practices, what we have found as we look at these communities that have done trail development so well is that they create destinations. They create gathering places. And typically these gathering places are very activated, either entertainment uses, retail, recreation, parks. The trails themselves are built in such a way that they accommodate multiple uses and modes. Someone pushing their stroller, someone on rollerblades, someone on a cycle, someone who may even be on a motorized cart. They try to be these nerves, these networks of connectivity through a community. So this is the Kyle Trail Network in a snapshot. And you'll see as the image kind of pans down here, we can connect to the north, we connect to the west in multiple places, to the Emerald Crown, connect east to Buda, and then connect south to San Marcos. And one of the goals, the focuses of the vibe or this overall trail network is that there's connectivity not only to our adjacent municipal partners and in the county, but any development in the city of Kyle. If I live in development A and I want to get across town, or if I want to go to a shopping area, if I want to go to a park, if I want to go and enjoy the Plum Creek section of the trail, I can get on the vibe through my neighborhood, jump onto the closest trail network, and be there in a very protected, safe manner, but also that incorporates this, this placemaking or this destination focus. So TOD, trail-oriented development, it's a shift away from the automobile. It's a shift in thinking from development, where you're basically in a typical trail. They kind of stick trails wherever they can, and for a lot of like retail centers, neighborhoods, these trails are out of the way. Sometimes they face back. You're looking at large dumpsters behind a commercial development or multifamily development, and a trail is just about kind of getting away from things. Well, we kind of want to flip that on its head and make the trail about connectivity and getting to things. So we have been encouraging our development partners to look to the trail, look toward the trail. And we understand that foot traffic equals sales. Foot traffic out of the automobile equals places that are alive, places where people can meet their neighbors, where connections can be made, because we know that those just aren't made in our vehicles. So as we have multiple developments happening all through the city, we're encouraging each of them to shift the orientation of these developments to look at the trail. It's not to ignore the automobile, because that's obviously ubiquitous and it's the way a lot of people will continue to get to these areas. But we hope to encourage people to get out of their homes on foot, recreationally, but get onto the trail in some form or fashion and find their way in a protected, open space manner to anywhere in the community or in the county. I mentioned placemaking. We have been, as I mentioned, all over looking at, when a trail kind of gets to a new place, what does that look like? And we're calling these locations, these hubs along the trail, vibes. And what does that mean? Well, they're kind of unique to the development community. And we hope they become an attraction for locals and visitors. Basically, the regional draw, and I go back to the brand, it starts drawing people in when they say, hey, let's go jump on the vibe, and we'll encounter a microbrewery on the way. We'll encounter a stage where the hip vibe is. We'll encounter a cluster of restaurants. We'll encounter parks, playgrounds. It might be natural features, water features, geographic features. In other words, the whole network is a way to be transported to experiences, to opportunities, to quality of life, to placemaking. If you look here, kind of the compressed map, the areas that we put in orange are the vibe spots that are along the trail network. And as you can see, they exist all over the place. And these aren't just, you drive by a food truck. These are developments or areas that are being this TOD, they're being created around the trail. They're being focused. And as I have the map, and I'm going to kind of just highlight with my mouse here, this area up here is one of our projects for the POSAC. You can see multiple vibe spots here with Heroes Memorial Park, La Verde Park, and then the Sportsplex here in the brick and mortar district. As you come down the trail, you can see some of our other vibe spots here in orange, the Greg Clark Park, and the trail getting to the vibe spot there. And then as you move east, basically this whole area and multiple vibe spots along the Plum Creek East that promote the more of the natural environment the further east that you get along the Plum Creek. So we have over 20 of these vibes already identified and in some level of entitlement, development, construction, some even on the ground. Again, each one is unique and it's intended to be a draw for variety and attraction. These vibes do have some commonalities. They set themselves apart along the trail in grand entrances, decorative pavers and speed tables. They accommodate vehicles and golf carts, so electric vehicles. They accommodate bikes, again, multimodal. So these spots are meant to just really be these placemaking gathering spots, charging stations, unique art, and we're hoping that as there are retail and other establishments along this vibe, they have common hours. So the whole trail network is really kind of, because it's so large, it's 50 miles basically of a proposed trail network. It encompasses a variety of trail types in look and feel. So there's natural trail, and a lot of this area in our first request to the POSAC along the Plum Creek has a kind of a dual natural feel as well as a hardened surface feel. Wooded sections to promote the environment, rivers and creeks. And then there's this built environment that has a 12-foot concrete trail segment, sidewalk, that promotes more the modalities that need, or that have smaller wheels. So again, your strollers, your rollerblades, golf carts, for example, any sort of modes that really wouldn't take advantage of the natural environment, but still accommodate the multiple recreational uses and transportation uses that could utilize that 12-foot trail. Along the Vibe, we have community gardens planned. There are enhanced landscaping areas with benches, swings. We have ponds and creeks. There's fitness stations. We also incorporate in the built section conduits under the trail that carry electricity, carry broadband for middle mile fiber. And that enables the smart cities approach through the trail network, so that we can have things like smart light posts, for example, with charging ports and Wi-Fi and security, so that we ensure that the trail is safe. We promote sustainability, but yet it's also very smart. It's very progressive. So the trail is the built portion of the trail is ADA compliant. In certain areas where it travels through some wetter areas, maybe along the Plum Creek that's prone to flooding, under some of our bridges and overpasses, it's built with reinforced concrete. Extra root barrier is on the trail to keep segments from heaving. I mentioned the conduits, the box culverts to accommodate this multimodality, and then we want the trail to look and feel very decorative and very welcoming. So finally, safety. The trail, should be safe. Where multiple modes can be on a trail system at once, but everyone feels like there's, it's a priority to the foot traffic, and then priority to the bike, and then ultimately to other larger modes of travel. These could include golf carts, NEVs, example would be like a Polaris Gem, personal scooters, and then again, running, jogging, walking, cycling, skateboarding, rollerblading. So certain activities that just cannot be done in a natural setting, there's an opportunity for both. We want to minimize the roadway crossings, so wherever possible, and we've basically planned the trail with very few at-grade crossings. We're capitalizing on bridges, culverts, etc., to get through the city. The trail would not allow heavier and faster vehicles, so ATVs, automobiles not allowed. The speeds would be restricted to 20 miles an hour or less. They would, anything electric would need to be street legal and permitted, and then rules in place for those who would be utilizing that mode of transportation, including where trail segments did not exist. The city roads at 35 miles an hour or under would replace those trail segments. So when we come to the Vibe and how it relates to the POSAC requests, again, our hope was to show, first of all, this really extensive network of connectivity through the city, connecting not only in city, but ETJ and county areas, and trying to get everyone to these vibes, to commercial shopping areas, to other services like Seton Hospital, medical, downtown, receive city services. So it allows for a very strong connecting network. So this first project is in Precinct 1, and I put a pretty large star here because it encompasses several miles, 4 miles of trail segment from the 35 frontage road east to the Cool Springs Nature Park. This is just a picture, kind of an example of what the Plum Creek section looks like. Of course, this is very dense, but immediately outside of this, it flattens out, it levels out, and there's a lot of open space through this Plum Creek area. And the Vibe has the 12-foot concrete section far removed from the natural sections. So even though they both kind of involve the same corridor, really they're meant for different looks and feels. If I'm out trying to experience nature, I sure don't want to be, on a concrete trail for one, with other modes of transportation with me. I want to try to get off and into a more relaxed environment. Same if I'm on a mountain bike, pump track, etc. This section of the Vibe passes through a couple of disc golf courses. So these Vibe spots recreationally, dog park, several playground areas, and there are 5 separate Vibes that it does connect. So it's built along the Plum Creek in the floodplain area. We hope that as we move forward with this trail construction, and we already have miles of trail cleared through here, what we are doing is we're doing river cleanups. We're taking out areas and shoring up areas that are causing erosion to the creek. We are adding riprap or even channel benching in areas to protect the creek channel. So it's not just a trail network through this area, but it is a full holistic look at what the Plum Creek or how the Plum Creek functions in East Kyle. It has been prone to flooding in the past, and we recognize that, and we're trying to mitigate flooding, especially as it backs up into adjacent developments, by looking at dredging, looking at clearing out debris, etc., but yet also at the same time creating a more natural and inviting environment for people utilizing the trail. We have measures, very clear measures as we're clearing trail. We protect our large trees, any vegetation. We're actually planting new vegetation. Where we have to place trail over roots, we're protecting those roots first. In this Plum Creek project, multiple benefits, but primarily connectivity. Again, it's pulling East Kyle from the neighborhoods, the developments, and putting them into other areas of Kyle. East Kyle and the adjacent areas of the county have historically been looked at as lower income. We want to provide the exact same opportunities for East Kyle as West Kyle. It protects natural resources. One of the areas, the Vibe areas, is Leinbarger Lake, which is a lake where our senior center is proposed to kind of sit and overlook, and this will have a trail around the lake, and we will have shoreline improvements and tree preservation in that Leinbarger area. And then, as I mentioned, flood mitigation, we're actively working on channel improvements as part of this overall project. Current status with this request, we have the trail master plan, the Vibe plan. What you've seen is just kind of a snapshot of that. The trail is very strongly supported by our city council, senior citizen groups, our citizens as a whole, and our development community. Basically, where we've presented this concept of the Vibe, it's pretty much universally accepted as unique. A lot of people are like taking a wait and see. Is this really going to develop into what we are anticipating it develops into, especially as we continue to build out these sections? And we're already seeing a lot of usage on the cleared areas already. We have multiple developments that are funding trail improvements through the area. So again, our requests are trying to plug the gaps, fill the holes between development areas or Vibe areas. And then we have hired a trail crew, and our trail crew has been with us for a couple of years now, looking at corridors and networks for trail clearing, and then ultimately construction, but at the same time preservation. Our partners on this project include the City of Kyle, Great Springs Project, engineering contractors, and general contractors. That is the first request. Second request for the POSAC is the Greg Clark Park improvements. This is precinct 4, and you'll see those priority areas listed from the county plan: festivals and special event spaces, and recreation center and sports complex. This is a current view of the Greg Clark Park area. You can see it's fairly spread out. It's a good sized park. And as you look, you'll see some of these areas are a little worn, outdated. And what this is missing is our brand new project, which is the Ash Pavilion. And some of you may know about that or may have even come, but that is a new covered outdoor hockey arena. This request is to really add more significant value as we are utilizing the park much more than we have in the past. That park does not have irrigation. So one of the big requests is to add irrigation. Additionally, we have the Kyle Area Youth Advisory Council, and our youth have really pushed for a skate park in Kyle. And this park is a great centralized location to build this skate park, as well as a splash pad. So we hope this park really becomes a draw for young families and youth to enjoy amenities that really most other communities already have. And we're getting there, but we're getting there in a big way. Other improvements, as funds are available: landscaping improvements, spectator improvements, playground improvements, lighting improvements, and sod repair. Benefits here is it's a connection hub. Really, it's more of the kind of the downtown vibe area, but a lot of older Kyle, that maybe original Kyle areas surround Greg Clark Park. We use that park for cultural heritage events, festivals, etc., and it does get utilized quite a bit. So this is really connectivity, recreation. Current status here: we have $1 million approved by the Kyle voters for this project. We are developing a plan for these improvements. Again, irrigation, skate park, and those other minor improvements, splash pad. I mentioned the Ash Pavilion was recently completed. That was over $500,000 that we went to the community and fundraised for that project. And the community came out and supported. This was actually a Make-A-Wish project that supported or benefited a young boy here in Kyle. So we raised $500,000 and built that pavilion here in this park. So that shows the importance of the park to the community. Partners here on this project: City Kyle, mentioned the Youth Advisory Council, skate park contractor, splash pad contractor, and sprinkler system contractor. And then finally, our third request is the Sportsplex Park improvements. So this is in Precinct 2, North Kyle, almost adjacent, within a stone's throw of the city of Buda. So kind of central Hays County. This is 70 acres of field space and connected by vibe spots, vibe trail networks. So you see what those vibe spots are there. Just a visual showing 1626, I think you all know, and then Kohler's Crossing. This is our new brick and mortar district. It is under construction currently. This is the connected Sportsplex area where you have 39 acres on the east. Those fields have already been graded and shaped, so that project is underway. It's connected through the vibe to this area, which is more of your competitive fields. It really needs more engineering and planning than we've been able to do so far. But is definitely in the plan, and you can see multiple field space, skate park plan, sport courts, playground, trail, exercise equipment. So really there's a lot of area to this. Now, what you don't see here, because it's not public yet, is this area here adjacent to the vibe is all being filled in by private sector recreational partners. And in Kyle, we don't have a recreation center. We have planned for one for many years, but have not had the funding to do one. What we ultimately realize is, if we partner with our private sector partners, and they can provide these recreational services that otherwise we would have built and provided within a rec center, then the community and the private sector both win. And so we have a large competition swim center that is has already closed, and the plans have already been approved. They will be breaking ground here maybe this month, right here on the corner. Then we have a very large recreational athletic facility planned here, and then another facility here. So the Vibe, the Sportsplex, and the private sector side all kind of come together to create this destination gathering spot for recreation, not just for Kyle or even Hayes County, but this is anticipated to be a Austin area and beyond draw with this many fields planned. And I failed to mention this west side area is about 31 acres plus or minus. So collectively 70 acres of field space. That is a lot of recreational opportunity, especially for competitive tournaments. So you see tournament grade soccer complex, 10 full-size fields and 4 junior fields. That's on one side. And then we'll call them practice fields on the other. And that's the east side that have already been graded. And there's another 11 fields over there. Picnic areas, covered pavilion, outdoor public restrooms, inclusive playground, sand volleyball, fitness, strength equipment, parking, environmental interpretation is all included in this request. And then again, I mentioned our private sector has come to the table as well. This is a destination attraction, but it is also tax generating. These fields will spin off hotels, restaurants, multiple other activities, including shopping, gathering areas, parks, etc. And we're already seeing that. We are actively working with developers to bring each of these about because of the excitement for this Sportsplex concept. We did engage a group MBA team from Texas State University, and we had them analyze the benefits of the Sportsplex. They estimated that $570,000 to the county and $685,000 to the city every year is the potential spinoff, the complementary tax benefit to building this Sportsplex. So it really is a project that is not only from a connectivity and a recreational standpoint, but from a tax generation standpoint, it has a great ROI back to the county. Here's some benefits just in summary. And then our partners would include City of Kyle, TERS 2, which the Hayes County is a part of the TERS, private sector, Great Springs again, architect, general contractor, and residential developers. The current status of this project, $7 million was approved by the Kyle voters for the Sportsplex. TERS number 2 is moving forward with our planning efforts. And again, you see dirt moving on the ground, fields being shaped. We're really trying to move very heavily now into refining the design and then into construction. So the 3 projects that I've mentioned, Plum Creek Trail, we have $2 million requested from the POSAC with 100% local match. So that is 100%. City of Kyle has $2 million invested plus the O&M costs, which we have already been investing in over $100,000 a year, and that will continue to grow as the trail segment continues to grow. Greg Clark Park, we've requested $1 million from POSAC, and we are providing $1 million from our match as well, and we will provide all O&M budget moving forward, and we have been for many years with maintaining the park. And then finally, this new Sportsplex park, $7 million is being requested from the POSAC, again with 100% local match from the city plus a $600,000 developer contribution to the project. So these are 3 key projects along the vibe spots for connectivity, etc. So that's in summary, you have connectivity, protecting natural resources, flood mitigation, diversity, not only diversity of modes of transportation or of recreation, but we're a diverse community. And we feel like this trail network and these requests really break down the boundaries to provide opportunities for all. Again, multimodal transportation. And then we do believe that this trail network is not only going to be a brand and a local draw, but hopefully a regional link for responsible development and a model that others can utilize. So with that, I know it was a lot, but thank you for your patience. Thank you for all your support, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, thanks, Scott. That was a lot. And I appreciate all of the presentation and what Kyle's doing to think big for their residents, to make sure that they can get outdoor and enjoy nature and connect through the vibe. I think that's an interesting marketing tool that you guys are using that could be really good in helping the citizens connect with what you're doing and then connect to each other. So that's great. POSAC members, do you have questions?
I have a couple, if that's okay.
I
Sure.
do as well, when you're done, Scott.
And is that Blanca?
No, it's Alexandra.
Oh, okay, thanks. I know that Blanca Loya also joined us. I wanted to mention one of our additional members. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. So you said that $1 million was approved by Kyle voters before the hub downtown regional. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir. So in November of 2020, the citizenry approved $10 million, and we spelled out each of these three projects and parsed it out. So $1 million for the Greg Clark Park improvements, $2 million for East Kyle Trails, and then $7 million for the Sportsplex.
So a total of 10 million, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay. And then, so does that, so that you mentioned the tax benefit revenue on one of those slides.
Yes.
Does a funding request anticipate that with what you're asking for?
The funding request will help build the environment to generate the taxes, but the $7 million request would be an upfront request, and then the tax benefits on the back end.
Okay.
If
So
I
it's
understood
not-
your question.
So it's not a $10 million request, it's 7 million, right?
It's a $7 million request.
Okay. But are you performing out the tax benefit revenue for the parts of the project that you were anticipating generating that
That's
in
correct.
the request? It's already included in there, or is there a surplus of funds? What I'm getting at, is there a surplus of funds that you guys are predicting from that tax benefit or the revenue benefit? You know, when people are spending money in your community, is that factored into the request, or is it not?
It is not factored in. So the ultimate $14 million project was actually originally, or it is budgeted at a higher price. It's over a $20 million project, but the $14 million that we would put into the project collectively would all be for built environment improvements. And then the adjacencies, the spinoff, would be the ROI.
Okay. Let me think about how to rephrase that question.
I'm not answering it well, apparently.
I'll let Alexandra go, or whoever was next. I can't remember.
Well, if Carolyn and Blanca, if y'all have questions, y'all can go before me if you want.
Go ahead. I don't have any questions. Thank you, though.
Okay. So I was just curious. I know you mentioned, sorry, that was my dog. Hold on one second. Okay, I apologize. I was just wondering, I know you mentioned the city of Kyle has been working alongside, local groups as well as other municipalities, since it's a connective. Well, I guess for all three projects, there's connectivity associated with various components for each of the projects. So has GBRA also been included in the process with, the Plum Creek Watershed Protection Plan and efforts that they have and in that program? And then I just also, was wondering, I know you mentioned that even though y'all are trying to be ADA compliant, as well as, preserving and protecting environmental features, sometimes those do conflict. And so it can be a challenge at times. And I understand that, but also, just making sure that non-point source pollution and TCEQ standards for, stormwater runoff and other standards are followed, in addition to, has it been considered, which I mean, I'm sure that they are, but just, kind of asking that question of, TCEQ also has they have their standard minimum standards for everything outside of the recharge zone and contributing zone of the Edwards Aquifer within a certain distance. And if it's in the Pigma and all these other variables and criteria, but, have y'all considered within those water quality construction standards and BMPs doing, the maximum protection versus just the minimum? Like, has that been a part of the discussion? And, like, to go beyond what's minimally required, has that been included? Or and also just to ask if you guys have been keeping up with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They proposed a listing for some freshwater mussels, and I don't know if any areas specifically within Plum Creek were identified, but I know that there's been a few places in Hays County that could potentially be identified as critical habitat with this rule. So just kind of, has all of that been included in the planning and discussions and everything?
That was a mouthful, but yes, Alexandra, I really appreciate all those questions. Great questions. The Plum Creek is an impaired creek, which means that we do need to take additional precautions and additional measures when we do any sort of development in that area. I have not heard about the freshwater mussels being in Plum Creek, so I don't think it's affected. But we did hire someone several years ago to oversee our MS4 program, and the Plum Creek is a major part of that, especially with our BMPs. In addition to the TCEQ, which is where we hired this person directly from, we are actively pursuing assistance from the Army Corps, because the Plum Creek channel itself being so critical to the city and being really our major drainage way needs really more design, more engineering. And so as we've really looked at the vibe, both from the built section and the natural section, we have kept that in mind to look at their BMPs. For example, LID comes to mind as a kind of an easy one. Certain areas of the trail here, we've looked at surfacing other than concrete, like FlexiPave or other porous types of concrete. And that's specifically because of being in that channel. So there are other BMPs that are in our MS4 stormwater plan that apply to the channel. And as we look at designing and constructing the trail through that section in particular, we are being very cognizant of putting the trail, far enough to the edge where it shouldn't have deleterious impact.
Okay, thank you. And then if you have any additional documentation that you guys haven't already shared, in relation to those kind of specifics that you guys are considering environmentally in the planning process. I'd love to, have you share those with me.
Oh, absolutely. You got it.
I have a couple of comments. First, congratulations on how well you responded to some of the feedback that came from the last round. So I see that there have been, the match issue and having development partners. Both of those were things that we had concerns about, and there they are. So thanks for doing that. There was something on one of your slides that I wasn't sure I understood about 15-year-old minimum. Is that an age of a user, or is that something else is 15 years?
Yes, great question. And that's, I think, one of the few bullets I kind of glossed over. So for any sort of cart usage, we sure don't want these recreational golf carts on the trail that are being operated by irresponsible drivers. So that was a minimum age for anyone operating an NEV or cart. We did take that as a best practice from Peachtree City, Georgia, which we went and toured, drove along their 100 miles of trail system, and they used their trail network to funnel children or youth to school. So their high school parking lot is 60% golf cart parking. So it's very interesting. Google Peachtree City, Georgia High School, and you'll see hundreds of golf carts there. And there's even a little video you can watch of kids coming to and leaving school, and it's impactful. It's inspiring. You see a different mentality of using a trail network for modality for youth, which is much safer than the automobile. So that it applies to that modality.
And my other question was, are some of your connectivity trails on the roadway? Are they bike lanes, sidewalks, etc.?
Another great question. So we are really trying to promote complete streets in our development, in trail segments that do not accommodate a 12-foot wide protected lane or protected path. We still do have adjacent sidewalks. So we try to do 8-foot minimum, but we do have areas where it's 6 feet, and even a few where it's even the old 4-foot wide trail. And in those areas where we cannot accommodate currently a 12-foot path, the trail parses out, it splits, and any sort of user that is walking, etc., would be on the sidewalk, the protected sidewalk, and then cycles as well as carts would share the road, but again, only in those roadways that are signed for 35 miles an hour or under.
And are there any of those segments that are in your complete street on the roadway that are included in our funding request?
Not currently, but being planned. So the Sportsplex area, the streets there are being planned complete streets, but they're not constructed yet. So on the ground today, no.
And those would be like privately funded, right, Scott?
But the Cromwell Boulevard is one of the main north-south arterials through that area, and that will be a city street. So we're actually working on a plan right now to fund about $7 million of road and protected trail improvements through that area. So
that wouldn't be like through a TIA or something like that from whoever's proposing that project.
Ultimately it would be, and it's a great question, especially, a developer would say they would be on the hook for that, but the city and the TERS has jumped in to accelerate the development in that area, probably by 5 to 10 years, where we are doing a CO bond through the TERS for the upfront development of those roadways.
Okay, got it. Sorry, Catherine, I'm interrupting you. You're questioning.
I'm done.
Okay, so I'm going to reiterate then, Scott, like you have the $7 million request, and I'm trying to understand like that you mentioned the tax benefit revenues And you said, I'm gonna make sure I understand it. You said that has not been factored into the request as far as what the tax benefit revenues would have, how they would apply to that
Oh, I
$7
understand.
million
Okay.
request.
I understand your question now, I believe.
okay.
So if I can restate it and give the answer.
Sure.
So we engaged the MBA student group from Texas State to look at the estimated revenue, assuming this project was built. So those revenues would only be realized if this project is constructed in the way that is per plan.
So it wouldn't go back to repay bond funds or whatever is what you're saying, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they're geo debt.
Okay. Yeah, my whole deal, I mean, most folks on the call know my deal is like funding projects that otherwise wouldn't be able to be funded with bond funds is kind of my deal. As opposed to having some sort of stream of revenue, whether it's tax base from hot tax or whatever it is, and then public access are kind of my two big, talking points that people are tired of hearing me talk about. And then also just on an aside, your presentation was great. Really appreciated it. It was very thorough. That Peachtree High School, I'm going to go research that because that was pretty sweet, in terms of like the golf cart deal.
Yeah.
Never thought of that as far as the last mile kind of scenario. Really, really good idea. Really cool. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Scott, I had one question for you. I think it was the city of Buda came to us with several different applications for funding, and they ranked them. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot because I don't know if your council has done this for you, but is there any ranking of these projects for you all?
In full disclosure, originally there was, and the original request was for the sportsplex because of the ROI component and the broader destination element of that component. But at the time, the vibe really wasn't fleshed out like it is now, and we're really pushing all vibe spots. We started, even though I would say that was kind of the first component of the funding request, from an O&M standpoint at the city, we hired a trails crew and immediately put them on East Kyle trails. And so that was a priority from our O&M standpoint, what we could do with what we had. And then the citizenry continues to push for improvements at Greg Clark Park. So it's hard to prioritize, but you'll see kind of the rationale for each project. They're so different, but they each have such a high priority.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Members of POSAC, any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but this is Carolyn. And of all the feedback I received when I asked about different projects in different towns, I did get a lot of response from active Kyle residents who are looking forward to having more trails and connectivity.
Great.
And more places for families to congregate.
I appreciate that you're doing that outreach. Thanks. Thank you, Carolyn. All right. Well, hearing none, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Look forward to looking further into these and getting back with you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it.
Well, with that, members, I think that is our agenda for this evening, unless anyone has something else that they'd like to discuss. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second, thanks, Scott.
All right. So Carrie, thanks everyone. I appreciate all of those who attended this meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Alexandra.
Thank you
I'll
all.
take care.